When you're there, help me debate with news and stats. All reporting that no Forest play. Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast with me, Greg Oram, and my podcast partner, Richard Spray. And with us on the panel, we have from Down Under, Mr. Scott Terry. Last night felt like one of those European nights you don't rush past. Nottingham Forest didn't just beat Ferencvárosi, they owned the night. A 4-0 win, played with control, intent, and that sense that everything was happening on Forest's terms. It was ruthless when it needed to be, calm when it mattered, and by the end it felt like a proper statement rather than just a result. European games have a way of revealing things about a team, about confidence, maturity, belief, and this one said plenty. There were standout performances from McAtee, Yates and Ndoye, moments of real quality in front of goal from Igor Jesus, and a sense that Sean Dyche and Nottingham Forest take this competition seriously rather than just turning up. Forest will now face either Fenerbahce of Turkey or Panathinaikos of Greece in the playoff round. The draw to find out is coming up in the next few minutes or so, but football doesn't pause, and neither does this season, because in the second half of this episode, attention turns back to the Premier League and the upcoming test against Crystal Palace. After a big European night, the questions change. Who keeps their place? How momentum is managed, and whether Forest can carry that authority from Europe straight into the weekend. So plenty to get into. Europe, the league, and the balance between. Enjoying a night like last night and making sure it truly counts.
Here come the players on what feels like a night of redemption for Nottingham Forest in the Europa League. Automatic qualification is still possible, but they need a miracle. It's Igor Jesus on the move, making room and shooting! Finding the corner, and Forest lead 2-0. Jesus has gone in behind, and Jesus rattles one in! Absolutely no doubt at all about that finish.
Yo, it's the Mac attack.
Actually done.
Yo,
Clinical penalty. He's had a really good night. And now James McAtee has his first Nottingham
Hello,
Forest goal.
Forest fans. I'm really happy to get another goal. Thank you for your support, and I hope to see you on Sunday.
It was a great night. It was the kind of performance last night that I think we all knew and expected Forest to be able to do in Europe against these teams. So it kind of sticks in the throat a little bit more when you think about last week at Braga and the away game against Graz. That, you know, we didn't capitalise on those teams that we really should be beating. We would have been finishing top 3, I think, had we really taken the points against Graz and Braga. But hey, listen, last night was a good night. It was, in some people's eyes, a bit of a dead rubber, but the players and the club certainly didn't take it that way. And it seemed like those in attendance really, really enjoyed it, which is what I think it's got to be all about. We talked long about getting back into Europe and what it means. So it was a real thrill to see us really take the game seriously and hand out a bit of a hiding. Richard Spray, how you doing, buddy? What did you make of last night?
Oh yeah, it was excellent. Yeah, I mean, it was. I caught about. I was able to watch it back, but you know, live I was only catching glimpses because I was in meetings. But I mean, my son's just texting me feverishly. We just scored. Oh, we scored again, and I'm like, my goodness, what is going on? So it was just a brilliant performance in general. I think I told you in the preview, like, whatever it looked like at Braga, do the exact opposite, and that's ultimately what happened. And we just came out with a greater intensity and fire. I mean, it just felt like off-ball movement was just quicker. I mean, they're diagnosing things better. It was incredible to see that kind of level of intent and commitment to giving the home crowd a performance that's worthy. It's what they've been dreaming of, as you pointed out, for decades. And so with all those those different fans that haven't seen such things, it's finally something that can resonate and stick in the memory bank. And Yeah, it was great. I think just from momentum standpoint as well, because now you're leading into Palace with a little bit more positivity. You're obviously coming off of a win in the Premier League previously, as well against Brentford away, and so you've got a lot of things that are kind of escalating in terms of expectation and performance levels that we're capable of, and seeing young players that I think have been much maligned, like you mentioned, McAtee just being, I mean, everything about the way that he was moving around, just the little back heels. I mean, everything was coming off. He just seemed a lot more acute and just, I don't know, just looked way more confident. And I think that previous performance clearly led into that. And so it's just great, I think, from our club in general, and just for the support they need from the manager, and as a team looking cohesive, and hopefully looking cohesive off the pitch as well as on the pitch. That's all seemingly balancing out now, and so it's definitely things to take note of, and things to be excited about for the future matches.
Okay, I've got one eye on the draw. We know it's Fenerbahce or Panathinaikos, so I've got an eye on that. It's live at the moment, so I might interrupt when that draw is being done with us on the screen. Scott in Australia. Good day, mate, or good evening to you, as you're going to be heading off to bed probably shortly after we finish. What are your thoughts on last night? And also give us your thoughts on the team selection, because there was some that were thinking, well, look, he should just play the kids. I didn't subscribe to that. I never thought he would play the kids. He hasn't done it in any of the games so far. I felt he wanted to probably try and get a win following last week against Braga. What did you make of it?
Yeah, look, I mean, what a performance. So many positives to take away from the game. It was an early start for me here in Queensland in Australia. So it was a 6 a.m. start here. It was 7 a.m. for Sydney and Melbourne Forest fans. And a very early start for people in Perth or WA. It was 4 a.m. for those guys. But look, it all made it worthwhile getting up early for me. 6 a.m. getting up for the game. As I say, plenty of positives. I think that was the best performance I've seen from McAtee. I thought he had a really good game, best game in a Forest shirt. He seemed to be looking forward more. I like the fact that when they did focus in on him a little bit. He had a smile on his face. He seemed to be enjoying enjoying the game. And then I thought it was a nice touch at the end there. They asked him to take the penalty. As soon as I saw the penalty given, I was like, oh, do we really want to ask Morgan to take the penalty again? Because he's now missed 2. So I think it was a good touch to give McAtee the pen, and it was a good pen as well, wasn't it? Like the keeper went to his right. McAtee slotted it. McAtee slotted it to the keeper's left. So yeah, really good game for McAtee. Just pleased to see him doing well as well, because we talk around him all the time. We talk around his level of performance. Is he fitting in? His style of play, where he's come from at Man City, how does that fit in terms of Forest style as well? And under Deitch. So it was great to see him having a really good game. Undoy as well, someone as well that we've sort of talked a little bit about as well, in terms of not quite getting to those levels which we would like him to be at. So great. I thought he had a pretty decent game as well. So it was good to see him do well. And of course, Igor Jesus, 2 goals, did really, really well. A stat for that is that he equaled the number of goals that John Robertson had scored in Europe. And then I think when he scored his second one, he actually went above him. So fantastic to see, Jesus doing well, scoring goals. I've got a stat somewhere I'll try and find in a minute around how many minutes he is between when he scores a European goal versus when he scores a Premier League goal, and he scores them a lot more frequently in these cup games, not just European games, cup games. It was one of those nights. It was a great night to be a Forest fan. It was great, really good performance. As I say, many positive. Yates, he had a good game. He did some really nice tricks. Like a couple of, I remember him going around someone as well, which was really good as well. So it was really positive. I think in the chat that we have, there was someone said, why is it we brought on I think was it Morgan, Aina, and Callum Hudson-Odoi on. We were 3 goals up. should we have been thinking about bringing some of the kids or some of the younger players which we had on the bench? That would, that would be a question for me. Had they gone on and got injured, how would that have been reflected on Deitch and the subs that he's bringing on? So, but just generally, look, we've got to be happy with that. Good performance, we and so look, just really, really, really happy with it.
One of my questions was going to be about could you understand about those substitutes, and we'll perhaps click back into that a bit later on. Let me quickly say hello in the chat to Big Arn. He was in the nav last night, and Raf was there as well when they were talking. Raf was being very optimistic about McAtee, and Big Arn says maybe your optimism on McAtee was more accurate than my doubts. He's got the pod on the screen and the draw on the other, like we have. Mark is in the comments. Nice to see Mark. Says nice to see McAtee step up. Ndoye had a good one, and Morato possibly had his best game yet. Maybe. And of course, yeah, I noticed as well on the screen, if you can see it, the guy that's doing the draw does look like Raf. He's got the same hairstyle as Raf going on. So Raf's not here today because he says he's on the train coming back from Nottingham, but maybe he's flown out to do the draw. Wouldn't put it past him. All right, let's remember, guys, that we are looking at a playoff against Fenerbahce or Panathinaikos. The draw is coming up. I'll keep you updated on that. Back to last night, though, Richard. I mean, there were some standout performances. We did talk about who would play, but on reflection, there was still absent Murillo, Gibbs-White, Hudson-Odoi, Aina, Lorenzo Luca can come in, Hutchinson can come in. There were still bona fide first teamers that weren't playing. So it wasn't like he went really, really strong. I thought he got the balance quite right. What did you make of that? Who stood out for you? And did you find it quite ironic that it was Yates that crossed the ball for them to score the own goal after he'd done the own goal last week? I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, and as Scott pointed out, he was kind of integral, right? He had a nice tackle on another player that I think started the move. And so he's such a conundrum, right? Because everyone loves him from a personality standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, just what he means in terms of his investment and passion about Forest, right? As one of our own. But he does have these performances in him where he seemingly ratchets it up a little bit and gets more involved. Box crashing is, as Raf likes to talk about with Yatesy. I mean, he was definitely box crashing. And as Scott rightly pointed out, there was a moment where I was, because as I said, I was watching it back, and he actually dribbled around a guy, and it was quite adept. And it was just like, where is that from? It's like he just has these little moments. I think these little, I don't know what do you call them, little moments of joy that he sort of that unfold with him. And so there's more depths, I think, to his play than we probably give him credit for. But yeah, he was the true captain. And it's funny because on the penalty, Raf had messaged me, called me last night when he was walking back from the nav to another pub, and he said, the funny thing is you didn't see it on the TV, I don't think, but in the ground, Morgan had taken the ball to take the penalty, and Yates actually took it away from him and handed it to McAtee.
I didn't see that. I know Raf said in our shot that's what it looked like. But I didn't think Morgan was ever going to step up for that person.
Yeah, probably not. You hope he's more benevolent than that, and he's more willing to share the load. And I'm sure after the last few penalties he's taken, he's probably not too quick to want to do that. But yeah, I thought McAtee in general and Ndoye made some really nice runs in the box. He looked more active inside the 18-yard box, which is what we've been calling for. I love the fact that the way that they had played. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, mate.
No,
it's
you're good.
Happening. It's only because the draw's happening and they're putting they're putting out balls, and they just pulled out for Panathinaikos. And I thought they were going to then pull out the ball that was going to be who they played, but they didn't. They pulled out Fenerbahce. So I'm not quite sure what's going on in terms of who we're playing yet, because I don't think it's got to it. They kind of looks like they're pulling out balls and putting them into sides of the draw or something. So sorry to kind of interrupt you, but I'll catch your attention. You were on a roll. Carry on.
No,
sorry, people. This draw is very complicated. It doesn't need to be.
Well, that's what you get with Raf, right? It becomes a little bit complicated.
Well,
yeah. No, I thought it was really nice to see Ndoye being a little bit quicker as well. I mean, you're seeing, I think, his fitness levels return. So it's important to recognize the pace that we saw at times when it looked really labored he's got more of it right in his locker, which is excellent. And we need that depth. We need that kind of spark, as you pointed out on the last match, as Rap pointed out on the last last episode rather. That need to have depth on the bench again and have some firepower coming off the bench. People like Hutch being integrated at certain moments to create problems, especially when the other opposing team's gotten worn out a bit. So it was great to see Ndoye just feel a little bit more, I think, spark. And I loved the fact at the very end, it was just sort of a microcosm of how they were approaching this from an attitudinal perspective. There was a part where, like, right after the fourth goal, I think Ferencváros tried to play the ball back to one of their center backs, and it was a little bit slow of a pass, but like Ndoye just sprinted right at it and almost took it off of him, and he would have been in the clear had he done so. And so it's that kind of mindset, I think, that I hope continues to permeate other batches in the near future, because if that's the way that they're going to approach everything, where they're just not giving them an inch, I just think there's going to be so much good that comes of that. And then just holistically, just everyone looked far more confident and far more kind of singing from the same song sheet, as Matt Drew likes to say.
Igor Jesus, Scott, I mean, he's had a little bit of criticism due to the goals he hasn't scored. But as you touched on, the cup competition certainly seemed to be where he's come alive. And following the Brentford goal, which was a great goal, he's come in again with two more last night. Great finishes. Do you think now that maybe we're going to see a little bit more play going into him, such as last night, where the balls are kind of played directly for him to run onto? Because that kind of crossing into the box hasn't really been working for him. So,
by the way, Paul just announced Fenerbahce.
Okay, so I'm a little bit behind. Yeah, so it's
sorry, Greg.
Up. No, thanks, mate. It was just coming up then. So yeah, it's Fenerbahce here we play. So there we go. We're off to Turkey. By hook or by crook, we're going to Istanbul, whether it's the final or not. So yeah, Scott, I was just talking about Igor Jesus and his style of play. Do you think that maybe Forest might try and suit themselves more towards that now?
Yeah, certainly, quite possibly. Just that stat which I mentioned as well. So Jesus he's scored a goal every 54 minutes in cup competitions for Forest, and he scores a goal every 648 minutes in the Premier League. So quite a disparity there. It'll be some player if he scores a goal every 54 minutes in the Premier League, but I think he's got a way to go. But look, really good to see him getting a brace of goals last night. I think what we're seeing a little bit more of as well is that we actually were playing through the midfield more. I think that rather than just the crosses into the box, which is not particularly suited him that much. He actually had I remember one chance in particular. A good cross came in, and unfortunately he just missed the target. But I remember at least definitely one, and there may have been more. But he certainly can head the ball. But obviously his physical stature, he isn't the tallest of players. Certainly he's a strong lad. I think, for him scoring a brace, I think it's really positive. I think at the time, I remember on the commentary, we're talking around how he would have been the first player for it would have been many years that would have scored a hat trick in Europe. So it would have been pretty cool had he gone on to score a third goal. But unfortunately, he didn't quite get there. I think for him it's good. I think he's sort of obviously with Chris Wood still being injured, and we're still not hearing much about that, which I do find a little bit disconcerting. And I'm sort of going off on a tangent in terms of strikers here a little bit, but we're not hearing much around Chris Wood, so I'm starting to wonder whether we are going to see him again this season. And thus, I think the desire to go with to obviously we've got Luca from Italy. And there's still talk around Mateta as well, but great to see Igor Jesus scoring goals, and long may it continue as well, because he's with our current squad of players, he is absolutely key for us in terms of our central striker.
Okay, so there's more news on this whole draw situation because it has been plotted out. So Fenerbahce is the playoff game. If we get past that, it would be either Real Betis or Midtjylland in the last 16. If we get beyond that, we would play at the moment either Porto, Braga, Celtic or Stuttgart. So there's lots of different permutations, lots of ifs, buts and maybes. We clearly have to focus only on the playoff match against Fenerbahce. Going to Turkey, it's the first leg is in Turkey. Obviously, they're notorious for their hostile atmosphere, so that's going to be an interesting experience for our team, our club, and so on, but one that we should embrace. We got a few more minutes to kind of talk about last night's game, Richard, and we have talked about McAtee. We have talked about Ndoye and Igor Jesus and Ryan Yates stepping up. I thought Zach Abbott played really well. I thought he got some good crosses into the box. I know that he is a centre back by trade, I guess, but a lot of centre backs when they're coming through get blooded in at fullback, and he's done that really well. We talked about the kind of changes in the Europa League squad that are coming up, and I just wonder if when it comes to the changes, with Savona's knee injury now being prevalent, we're not sure about how that's going to play out. Potential interest in Oliveira from Napoli still is still hanging around. I wonder what your view is on the squad going into the last 16. I think the squad gets overhauled after the playoffs, so they can't even overhaul it yet. So again, I don't want to kind of get too much ahead of ourselves, but if we get to the point where we can overhaul the squad in terms of those three changes, are you comfortable with it being Aina and Williams with Zach Abbott backing them up and Savona in the background with his knee injury possibly being back as well? Or do you think another fullback would be required?
Yeah, because I think we slotted in the idea of having Oliveira come in, right, and provide cover for that left back spot. As we know, if in a pinch, either Aina or Williams could be utilized on either side of the pitch. And, having, because Abbott, right, qualifies, if I'm not mistaken, for...
do you want to use a space up? Do you want to take up one of those three?
Would he, though, because of his age? I thought if he was...
No, not Abbott. I'm on about Oliveira coming in.
Yeah, I think so, because I think you just put yourself in jeopardy. I mean, I understand, we've got to balance this stuff out with regards to also some attacking players. And, if we need to pull in a new midfielder or something of that ilk, I don't know. But I would definitely utilize him because, look, I mean, Aina's not up to this level yet. We need him to obviously log minutes, but I think he's going to be primarily utilized for the Premier League. He certainly came in last night, as we saw, but I would hesitate to utilize him too heavily. In each, we say we've got to get through the playoff. But I would like to see Oliveira come in because I think his position, like I mentioned on the last episode, him having experience in Europe, playing in Serie A, I think it would be of value to have someone with his veteran savvy come in and provide cover. I guess it's going to be interesting to see how it progresses because we're going to have. What are we going to do if we do end up getting Mateta? What are we going to do if we do end up getting Taremi? I mean, if there's these kinds of changes that are coming, could that maybe override that? I'm not sure, but I just worry about, do we have enough if there's an injury that occurs to be able to provide the right kind of support? Can we move to a back three? Maybe we have to change formation, something to that effect. But yeah, I would slot in Oliveira, and I think that was the discussion last time that was needed.
Okay. Game last night was a 4-0 victory and a kind of scoreline we've been crying out for, Scott. How frustrated are you about the Braga situation last week? Now, in the cold light of day, we put a team to the sword. I mean, Ferencvárosi had come in with, pretty good reputation. They were in the top 8 and looking to solidify that, and they didn't really get a look in. I mean, they hit the bar a couple of times, but it was a dominant display from Forest last night. We talked about Igor Jesus' finishing. James McAtee had his best game in a Forest shirt by a country mile. So how frustrated are you with Braga and Sturm Graz? And has McAtee staked a claim for the Premier League team?
Yeah. I remember on the footage which I was watching last night, I think they talked around the fact that the two penalties that we've missed this Europa campaign, had we got both of those, then we'd be in the top 8. Ifs, buts, maybes, we can't dwell on that. We just got to focus on where we are right now. Of course, there's frustration around Braga. The performance was really poor. I think there was a lot of players that simply didn't perform on that night. But to be honest with you, look, I think we need to put that behind us and say, right, that was, and I'm sure Deitch had a few words to say to the players regarding that game. We've done that. I think last night, that was the next game after Braga. That was the game, Europa game. That was the game which we needed to do well, and we did. We played well. We started positively. It was great to see. I mean, scoring 4 goals as well. I saw a stat as well, and I can't find it. But the last time we scored 4 goals in Europe was way back when. So I think that we just got to focus on the positives, right? Let's not dwell on Braga. Let's draw a line under that. Let's focus on the fact that we did really well last night. A lot of the fringe players in the squad, McAtee and Doyle played real good as well. As you mentioned, Zach Abbott came on as well, played fullback. Bakra came late on as well, and he had a couple of touches as well. So I think we just got. I think we have to be looking forward. Let's forget about Braga. Look forward. The next game now, Fenerbahce, traveling to Turkey for that game. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on putting our best foot forward. I do wonder whether or not now we're into more sort of knockout phase in the Europa, whether or not we're going to be playing a stronger team. I still personally believe that the Premier League is our number one priority, but the further and deeper we get into the Europa League, there's a question there as to how, how not the team that Dyche will pick. Because if we've got an opportunity to go deep in the Europa, then we really should be thinking about picking a big team. But Braga, that's it's good that we take lessons from that game, and absolutely we should do that, and we should do the analysis on it. But we've sort of bounced back. We've got a fantastic performance against Ferencvárosi. I can never say it right. We had a really good win against those guys last night, right? A lot of those fringe players played really good, positive performance. Let's take that and let's now move forward into the game against Fenerbahce and also Palace on Sunday as well.
Forest went through a little bit of a rocky patch through December, and with the Everton games were both in December with the Fulham match and all the stuff that every Forest fan knows about. And so lots of question marks are being asked about Sean Dyche. So with the West Ham win, the draw with Arsenal, the win against Brentford, and obviously the win last night. We know the Braga thing. Again, I still put it down to 54 seconds of madness. Morgan Gibbs-White puts that penalty away. We don't concede. We win that game. So these things happen. And when you make changes and you're away from home, and players like Douglas Luiz, he probably knew that he was going to Villa. I don't think on reflection, he probably should have played in that game, if I'm honest with you. Those kind of things go against you. So you're right, Scott. We've got to look forwards. We've got to focus on what's ahead of us. But I look at these players like McAtee and Ndoye last night and say, look, it's the fickle nature of football fans. Now I'm thinking, I want these guys to stay at the club. I want to see them do more of that. At the same time, weighing it against the fact that we were playing Ferencvárosi. And actually, these are a Hungarian side that are third in their division, that are nowhere near the quality, really, of the team that we had out last time. And their goalkeeper was horrific. Everyone had heard about the fact Fletch said he was at Notts County and then on loan at Mansfield and couldn't get a game. He was horrific. They had a couple of neat interchanges, but apart from that, we rolled them over and say no more about it. So when we play these teams, Richard, in the knockout, playoff and so on, it's got to be the best players that Forest have got now, isn't it? It's no more group stage where you can afford to lose and maybe go through. It's a two-legged affair. It's got to be the best players on the pitch come hell or high water, hasn't it?
Well, I think if you ask our owner, he's going to tell you that's the case, right? Because he wants that trophy in the cabinet. I mean, and they referenced it on the broadcast last night over in the States that PSG kind of did something similar in terms of how they got to the Champions League win. So it's not impossible for us to do that. But to your point, I think that's what makes the Braga performance a little bit frustrating. It is an outlier, as you rightly pointed out, but it's also a situation where it's like the quality of what we have clearly is higher than what they have. Because that goalkeeper, to your point, looked like an extra from Point Break. It was just like it was such a bizarre, he was just so spastic. He would make a good save, and then the next minute he looked like he hadn't played the position in his life. So it's that kind of inconsistency of form. But I'm glad that the general, when you really upon reflection see that the general trajectory of our performances have been quite high with a few isolated moments where we just didn't follow through. We weren't clinical enough, especially on penalties. But yeah, absolutely. I think you have said, Greg, if we win, you've been so consistent about this. If we finish 16th, 17th in the Premier League and win the Europa, I mean, that sets us up for a lot next summer. And when you start to see these kinds of performances where the younger players that have struggled through all of the different, variations of style and play and managerial styles and all of that are starting to find their feet, that only can be a good thing for us next year. Because what I saw, in particular for McAtee, granted a very small sample size of Morgan when he came in, Morgan looked really off. Like his passing was really lacking. And so when you see McAtee put in a full 90 and you see him be able to find those tight windows and he executes that vision that we've seen him do with Man City, with those little windows of space that they have when they can just move the ball so fluidly between the lines and inside of the 18-yard box. I mean, that's the kind of, I think, in football IQ and sort of pedigree you want, because those are the things that get you, if you get in the Champions League, give you an opportunity to be competitive. So it's great to see that stuff starting to kind of manifest itself. We've much criticized the recruiting and all of that, but it hopefully this is a turning of the tides, if you will, at least in McAtee's performance levels, and be able to kind of show these guys were there, they were ready. It just takes time. It takes an opportunity just to have that one performance that gives you that a little bit of acceleration in terms of belief and confidence. And so, yeah, I agree. I think Marinakis is going to expect us to have pretty much, maybe a slight change here and there, maybe a slot in a different midfielder than Sangare or something. But for the most part, yeah, I think they go full strength.
Yeah, I think Sangare plays both Premier and Europa.
He probably does, but yeah.
He's that important personally. McAtee, we talked about Callum Castell, good friend of Talking Reds. His post on X last night, James McAtee created the most chances, which was 4, completed the most dribbles, which was 5, and in the game tonight, in the game last night, as well as scoring his goal. He was brilliant. Absolutely no question about that. We want to see more of that. Another one from TalkSport. This stat is quite cute. Sean Dyche, the first manager to win his first 3 Europa League home games without conceding a goal. Lopetegui was the last manager to do that. Went on to win the trophy with Sevilla that season. So maybe the omens are good. But one thing I did like was this one, the Europa League Matchday 8 team of the round, or team of the match day, with Milenkovic, Sangare, Ndoye and Igor Jesus in the team, as well as a James McAtee who scores a 9.26. So that just kind of illustrates how good he was last night, with touches coming off all the time. Even when it looked like he'd lost the ball, he got the ball back. It was bizarre. He was playing more of an inside right. He wasn't even playing in the 10. The way he was drifting in, it was really good to see. The way that the Dyche had them set up just seemed to be really working. Yates fiercely winning the ball back, sliding in to assist Igor Jesus for his first goal. Yates, as someone else mentioned, I think Scott mentioned, turning a player in the box and hitting it with his left. And Ndoye doing something similar in the first half. Really, real crowd-pleasing moments, and really great to see. Some other housekeeping before we move on. Fabrizio Romano is now reporting that Jean-Philippe Mateta has agreed personal terms with AC Milan, and this is his preferred option. Milan have advanced in talks with Crystal Palace for the summer, but trying to complete the agreement now. So this looks like it could be a loan back to Palace. He's not saying that, but I think reading between the lines, it looks like Milan looking to sign now and maybe loan back to Palace, which is why they might decide to do that deal for less money than what Forest are offering. So I think we can probably start to write off Jean-Philippe Mateta coming to Nottingham Forest. Something I'm sad about because I really rate the guy. Something also interesting that's popped up is that Ademola Lookman is looking like he's joining Fenerbahce. So the team we are going to play in the playoff are about to sign the guy who scored a bag of goals in this competition previously. I think he scored a hat-trick in the final or in one particular game. So Ademola Lookman looks like he's going to Fenerbahce. All right, we are looking at last night's game, or we've looked at last night's game. Thank you very much to everyone who's with us in the comments. We're going to be looking at Crystal Palace coming up to the City Ground in the second half. Before I get to that, do go ahead and hit like and subscribe, because I good amount of people watching the live at the moment. Thank you very much for being with us. You can follow us on social media across all platforms. You can give us a 5-star review wherever you're listening on your podcasts.
This episode of Talking Reds is brought to you by The Cheese Trader. If you love proper cheese and you love Nottingham Forest, then this is the place for you. From rich, creamy blues to powerful charcoal cheddar, The Cheese Trader has the flavour to match every moment of the season. Whether you're celebrating a big win or drowning your sorrows after a tough loss, use the code Talking Reds for 10% off every order. The Cheese Trader on Grape Lane in York, owned by Forest fan Stu Freestow. Proper cheese, proper passion. Find them online today and join the cheese revolution.
Okay, right. All eyes are now back on the Premier League. Europe has been fun. It's had its highs, it's had its lows, but we look forwards to welcoming Fenerbahce to the City Ground for leg 2. We look forward to welcoming Crystal Palace on Sunday. And a chance to really set down a bit of a marker, Richard. How do you want to see Forest approach this game?
I want the same level of intensity and energy and all of that from what we saw yesterday. And because I think they are really wounded right now, even with Mateta involved. He's not been scoring a ton of goals as of late. I mean, he's got 8 on the season. We'll get into a little bit more about the team, but I think they haven't won a match in 11 consecutive matches. And that includes a loss to Macclesfield. So they are not feeling good about themselves at the moment. There's plenty that we've seen out there in the socials about what the situation looks like for Glasner. I'm sure for Mateta, I can see the draw for AC Milan, as you pointed out. It probably seems like we were being used to boost his opportunity to get somewhere else, but that's fine. I think we'll accept that, especially if Igor Jesus can continue his form. But yeah, if there's ever a point where, and they're missing some key players, which we'll talk about as well in a minute, but we've never had a better opportunity to beat them again because we've consistently drawn against this team. We've really struggled to beat them regularly. We've always been competitive in those matches, but it never seemed to come off with 3 points on a consistent basis. So if there's ever a time to do that, but at the same time, we've also played teams like Fulham, for example, who were without key players off to AFCON. So we can't allow ourselves to. The overall mindset can't dip. We can't get too arrogant and believe that we can just work them over because of where they're at right now, especially the headspace they're in, and some of the struggles that they're dealing with in terms of injuries and other things. But we have to keep this momentum going, keep this progression up the table, keep getting ourselves distance because that's all we can control, as we know, is our performance levels and our outcomes as much as humanly possible versus continuing to scoreboard watch and worry about what West Ham's doing, what Leeds is doing, and so on and so forth. So it's a key opportunity for us, as you said, critical to our success in terms of the Premier League. And once we start building that security, it makes the decision making around how we feel the team again in Europa that much easier because we don't worry as much about are we going to be putting ourselves in jeopardy with the Premier League. So this is definitely an opportunity at that stretch of matches, as you've talked about, Greg, where we really have a chance to ascend.
So I mentioned Forest's rocky spell in December and beyond, and it looked like we were going to be really struggling. Following those 3 Premier League games, we have picked 7 points up from out of 9. Do you think this is definite signs then, Scott, that we have turned another corner? And how crucial do you see Sunday? Is it really crucial that we get 3 points against a Palace team that are just hovering above us, and 3 points drags them back in even more with us?
I do wonder whether this is going to be a turning point in our season. I feel that we got the result against Brentford last weekend. That was probably against sort of people's expectations a little bit. I think we weren't necessarily sure how we were going to do in that game. And then we've had the good win last night in the Europa. Yes, the Europa League, maybe isn't quite at the same standard as the Premier League, but still we've now got 2 wins on the bounce. As Richard says, we're playing against a Palace team that aren't necessarily at their best at the moment. They're on a poor run. So I absolutely think we should be looking, and we're at home again, and we're at home. I absolutely think this should be a game which we're looking to win. I think we should be going out to attack Palace. I think we should be trying to take the confidence that we've got so far in these last 2 games. We need to be taking that into the game against Palace on Sunday. and really looking to exploit them. I think we should go with two wingers. I think we should really go out and attack them. I think a win. I think a win is absolutely something we should be going for. I know historically we don't have a great record against Palace, but this is, to me, this could be the game which we're going to beat them. And I do wonder whether if we then win 3 games on the bounce, so let's say we do beat Palace on Sunday, what does that do for our confidence? What does that do for the momentum? What does that do for moving away from the bottom of the table, giving us that confidence? We've got players coming back into form. We've got McAtee playing well and Doy played well last night. So what does that, does this then give us the momentum which we need to be moving forward? And is this a turning point in our season? I think it could be.
I think it's possible as well that goal last night for McAtee, albeit a penalty, it being handed to him by whoever it was, Yates or Gibbs White, and Sean Dyche mentioned in his post-match interview that Gibbs White was the first one over to congratulate him. That togetherness feels really genuine. It doesn't feel fabricated or manufactured. It feels like the squad are in tune with each other and they like each other and they want to play together. And McAtee last night, Richard, having the performance that he showed us, that kind of thing can surely be carried on now. And Dyche will look at him and say, you know what? He referenced how hard he's been working in training. He's seen it on the football pitch in front of those fans last night. And it surely opens up another option now. And we've all picked the same team for Sunday. I'm going to put it on the screen. We've all picked the same team. I'll quickly go through it. We've got Sales in goal. The back 4 you'd expect of Williams, Milenkovic, Murillo and Ola Aina. The midfield 2 in a 4-2-3-1 you'd expect of Anderson, Sangare. We're thinking Gibbs White plays in the 10, Hudson-Odoi on the right. Dominguez played the whole game last night, so we're thinking an attacking switch to a 4-2-3-1 with Hutchinson coming back in on the right. And Igor Jesus, who's in form, who's firing, surely has to start with Lorenzo Luca hovering to come on and give him some minutes as well. But the question I've got for you, Richard, is it as clear-cut as that now? Does McAtee say, hang on a minute, I want to play on Sunday. Give me a chance. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, my initial team that I was going to put out there actually had McAtee in the 10 and moved Morgan out to the right. But, because I think McAtee would struggle with the pace and the quickness and agility of a Mitchell, whereas I think Hutchinson probably does better against him. And we know Hutchinson's as good on the ball, I think, if not even maybe slightly better than McAtee. They're both pretty comparable. But, yeah, it definitely did. I mean, that was the point. I had McAtee on the team. But then as I kept thinking about it, just in terms of the time that he playing that full 90, had he played, say, 60 minutes, maybe you could make the case. But in this instance, I think you have to play the player that's obviously still got enough that he can offer you in Hutchinson, because he was favored prior to, I think, some of the recent matches when we started switching things up and putting Dominguez in more and then giving Morgan more of an opportunity to play out wide. But I think you're right. I think this is the team we're going to see. You could make the case that maybe we play the same team that we did against Brentford. But I think as you rightly pointed out, with Dominguez playing as many minutes as he has, as much of an engine as that guy has, he probably puts more effort in than most players, I think, in the Premier League on a consistent basis. But it's just at some point you wear those players out, and you don't want to risk injury. You don't want to do those kinds of things because he's a key piece for us. As you've always rightly pointed out as well, Greg, that utility player that we've all needed to slot in at different areas. He wasn't too massively effective last night, but I mean, he put in a shift as he normally does. But I think as much as I would love to see McAtee inserted into this lineup right now, because I think he's playing, and you want confidence players playing. You want your players who you think can provide impact on the pitch, but I also don't want to wear him out because he hasn't logged a ton of minutes this season. So I think Hutchinson's the right call for this moment. But that doesn't mean you can't pull McAtee off the bench at a moment's notice. That would be definitely an option for Dyche at this stage, and I think he could do a job there too.
What about you, Scott? I mean, you again picked the same team that I did and Richard went with as well. On McAtee, is he better to start? Is Hutchinson the more effective one off the bench, perhaps? We want weapons off the bench. Ndoye, Bakwa, Hutchinson, Lorenzo Luca, and so on. What do you think now? Now that you've seen McAtee play last night, Are you happy to stick with Hutchinson playing, or would you want to give McAtee a chance? I mean, are you concerned about the gap in terms of days between last night and Sunday? Is that enough recovery time?
Yeah, it's funny the fact that we all picked exactly the same team. I mean, I think this is probably for me anyway is our strongest 11 currently. Certainly our strongest 11 when we play at home, and I would still go with the two wingers. I still go with Hudson-Odoi and Hutchinson. I think at home we should be attacking more. We should. I think I understand the reason for playing Dominguez sometimes instead of one of the wingers. That's completely understandable, especially if we go away from home and we're just trying to be a little bit more solid at the start and then bring a winger on, sort of in the second half. And I would still start with Gibbs White. As I say, I'm made up for McAtee. I'm really happy that he's had a good game. I mean, I can't. We were just talking about it a moment ago. This is his first game which we've actually talked positively about how he's performed. So I think that's really positive for him, and I think maybe because his confidence will be up. If Gibbs White isn't doing a great deal, maybe after sort of 60-70 minutes, maybe we could bring McAtee on as well, give him an extended period of time off the bench, or alternatively keep Gibbs White on the pitch and maybe take one of the other players off and then give McAtee a chance again. But I think whilst his confidence is up, I think we should be trying to give him a little bit more game time off the bench. But for me personally, I would start with Morgan. He is our incumbent number 10. Let's stick with him. Let's see how he goes. If he's maybe off the pace a little bit and he's not quite doing what he can do for us normally, maybe we bring on McAtee, as I say, so after 60-70 minutes and give him a good run on the pitch. I think another similar for Ndoye as well. I mean, whether or not we want to risk bringing Ndoye on as well, if one of our wingers, if Callum or Hutch aren't playing particularly well, or they're not getting, they're not getting one over on their opposite number, maybe we should be looking to bring Ndoye in a little bit earlier as well. Bring him on after sort of 70 minutes or so, something like that as well, just to try and give them on, try and bring them on. Their confidence will be up. They've played well, so maybe we should be looking to try and introduce them a little bit earlier also.
With Ndoye, I thought last night he showed that he is a good player. So him coming off the bench for me is, absolutely something I'd be happy to see. Can't expect the team that start to play every minute. Having important players on the bench that can come on and affect the game is crucial. We're putting a lot of emphasis on Sangare now. He all of a sudden is the player we always wanted to see. Obviously, Anderson couldn't play last night, so he'll be back as well. Looking at potential new signings just for the moment, Richard, as well. I mean, John Percy's article that was published last night talks about Mateta being the prime target, but we now know that looks unlikely. But he talks about in his article that Forest have got other options or other targets in mind, which is not a surprise. They're always going to have, first choice, second choice, third choice, and go down the list. Would you be happy for them to go after Strand Larsen? Because it looks like the Strand Larsen to Palace deal is now dead in the water. Well,
considering what we were reportedly paying for Mateta, I mean, I understand it's easy to spend other people's money, but I would say it's not a massive gap between the two. I would also say because
Strand Larsen, you want to?
Well, I think it's 45 plus add-ons, right? So I'm not saying that's cheap by any stretch, because we were saying if we could get 35 to 40, we'd be pleased. But maybe now that things have gone the way that they have, and maybe you can throw in a Taiwo, for example. I would hate to see him go after what we've seen recently, but we talked about that may be a good send-off for him and good option for him to play in a championship potentially for a season, rebuild his confidence, continue to build up his fitness, and have a full season without injury. Might be a good option for him if that's something that he desired. I'd be open to it as well because of his age and because of his recent form, not recent form as in this season, but just in the Premier League. He seemed to have adapted quite well in his first season. Yeah, he had his ups and downs, as it were, but I think he had 14 goals. So he's a proven goal scorer in the Premier League. I think he can handle the workload, handle the physicality. So getting a player like that into me wouldn't be a disappointing thing whatsoever. I think he's ready for a change, and I think by virtue we could take advantage of that change of scenery concept by bringing him in. Is it essential at this stage? No, because if we're thinking, well, you know what, if there's any chance we can hold on to, say, a Murillo for another season, especially if we do win Europa and get in Champions League, that's the kind of pedigree of player you're going to want to have in your back line, along with Milenkic, leading that back line, clogging up the middle of the pitch and that spine, and not allowing, these very adept players that we're going to end up having to face in, say, a Champions League environment still on your squad. So maybe it doesn't put as much pressure if you don't spend the money. And bringing it over, is it Tarami? I think his name is from Olympiacos. Yeah, because they've got a preferred striker there as well, and I think he's bagged 8 goals this season. So he's a player I would be very happy to get as another depth piece in lieu of, and maybe on loan or something to that effect, in lieu of possibly spending a lot of money. And then you reassess it in the summer and figure out what you need to do then, when options are a little bit more favorable potentially, as well as a bit more time to scout players and to get a better price point for yourself, especially if you end up offloading. Anderson's likely gone before June 30th. You could see Murillo. I mean, you could even see Morgan leave potentially still, because I think Tottenham's reportedly still interested in him. So, yeah, I'm not feeling the pressure at this stage to have to do that, especially with how Igor's playing, because I think we forget he should have 2 more goals in the Premier League. I'm not saying that's a lot to have 4, but that would put him at 13, which that's on. It's the exact same number that Ekitike's got across all competitions, and we know how people feel about him. So yeah. I think Igor's been quite a bit better than we give him credit for, and by virtue of Atletico Madrid being interested in him, I think that shows what kind of belief a team like that has in a player like that. So.
Yeah. We will be coming to you on transfer deadline day. We will be on the day, I think we'll be doing the Crystal Palace review around midday, and then Richard and I will be back at 6 o'clock GMT for an hour as the window moves towards closure, and then I'll be back from 8 p.m. With Raf definitely, and maybe one other. So we'll be back on transfer deadline day. There's going to be lots of twists and turns between now and then. L'Equipe, the French outlet, are now reporting that Mateta is going to fly out to Italy tonight to put pen to paper on a 3.5-year deal. It's a 35 million euro sale to Crystal Palace. No mention there of a loan back, so that was my hunch that a loan back might happen. But what it does mean is that it's probably not going to play on Sunday now. I would imagine.
And Kedia is, I think, struggling to get on the pitch right now too. So from injury,
so Wharton we know suspended. They've lost Mark Guehi. Obviously, Eze went at the start of the season. That team that's done so well, winning the FA Cup and so on, it has been dismantled. There's a lot of, obviously we know Glasner's going at the end of the season, and whether he sticks around till then or he gets sacked or whatever, who knows? In my eyes, there's never been a better time to play Crystal Palace. And I hate saying that and putting that out into the world, because it means we're going to end up losing 2-0. But the way that we've played with the assurances, I can't even get the word out. You know what I'm trying to say. The way that we played in a defensive way against Arsenal, the way we played away at West Ham, coming back from a goal down, the way that we played at Brentford on Sunday, we had 2 fantastic goals scored by Igor Jesus and Taiwo Awoniyi, who I kind of feel like is probably going to leave this window, but it may well end up that we have Igor Jesus, Lorenzo Luca, and Taiwo Awoniyi backing them up in our squad. Chris Wood, we think's out for the season. So lots of guesswork going on, okay? None of us are really in the know. We're picking up information where we can. So we are giving you our opinions on a lot of things, but we are thinking about Crystal Palace on Sunday. So Richard is going to give us a couple of minutes on the opposition. Here comes the opposition report.
Yeah, so if you aren't able to see the screen, many of you know we've got their last few fixtures. There's 6 of them. The last 6, they, as I said earlier, they haven't won rather in 11 matches. So clearly, as Greg pointed out, the confidence is at an all-time low for Palace. As he said, also rightly, losing some players as well is that are critical to their success, for what success they have had. But yeah, they're really in the doldrums at the moment, unfortunately. In terms of personnel, if you look at their overall setup, Glasner favors that back three. It's Henderson always in goal. You've got Richards. You've got Lacroix playing in that center back position, and then Gahey was playing on the left, but he's obviously not there anymore. They operate with Tyrick Mitchell playing in that left wing back position, and then Munoz, who's very difficult to deal with, scores a lot of goals and assists for them, or provides a lot of assists for them as well. He's been injured quite a lot of the season, so he's just coming back. Adam Wharton, who typically plays in that sort of Anderson-like role, which we all know, though, he's not nearly at the same level. He's still a really good player, but he won't be be on the pitch this time because of suspension due to 2 yellow cards that he got in the last match. So it's likely Will Hughes. I would imagine Lerma is going to be your other midfielder. And then you've got Sarr, who's a good player as well, playing up top. We're playing in that sort of behind the striker role, not in a true wide wing role, but in a sort of behind the striker, in sort of a pseudo. It's almost like 2 10s, if you will. But Mateta not being there, and Nketiah, frankly, is a bit of a question mark as well. I'm going to be interested to see who they actually field at striker. We've also got listed real quick just what their strengths and weaknesses are. So they're creating chances. Now, a lot of that's probably going to be a bit impacted simply because of the lack of Wharton and players of his ilk actually being able to play, coupled with the fact that Mateta's not there because he's their primary goal scorer. So that's going to be even more of a challenge for them because they haven't been able to finish. They don't keep a lot of possession. They're very direct. They like to play a lot on long balls as well. They are a bit weak on defending set pieces, so that's a good thing. I mean, Richards has historically been really good at heading the ball and playing that kind of role where he kind of manages the middle of that back line really well and keeps balls out of the box and so forth by heading away. But he's struggled a little bit as well. So anyway, we're also looking again at Decore is not on the team. Kamada, who's another depth piece that they have in the midfield, he's not playing. So they're really challenged. We can go to the next slide, Greg. In terms of goal scoring, for goals that they've scored, they're typically getting them from open play or set pieces. So we've got to be a little bit aware of that set piece situation. We saw last night as well. I think on that first opportunity that Ferencváros had, they came off of a set piece where they passed the ball to one of their wingers, and then he crossed the ball in, and then they hit the post. But it's something that we have to be obviously very conscious of. They've gotten 4 penalties as well, so they're going to be a very prone to want to try to draw a cheap goal out of us. So we got to be conscious of being disciplined there and just disciplined in general with their open play. But like I said, because of some of the missing pieces they have, that's going to be challenged as well, just in terms of how they move the ball in the middle of the park. They're giving up goals. They've got a negative 4-goal difference at this stage. Most of their goals are coming from set pieces. That's at 12. So again, that's an opportunity for players like Milenkovic to take advantage of that. They are giving up penalties. They're giving up fouls in general. That was another weakness. They give fouls away in dangerous areas, so we need to take advantage of that. Where a player like McAtee being on the pitch would be a value, or Anderson, who's a good penalty taker, or Callum would definitely be a benefit there. Their primary target, as we said, is Mateta, so they're going to be without him. Even Daniel Munoz, though, at that right wing back spot, has got 3 goals on the season, so he's someone, again, we just got to keep focus on and not allow him to make those runs. Just their overall opportunities from a scoring standpoint and where they take their shots, it's going to be predominantly in that 18-yard box, 27% outside the box, only 14% in the 6-yard box. But we really got to make sure we're clogging up those spaces, not giving them passing windows in that 18-yard box, and we should be able to control them. And that's it.
Outstanding. Thank you very much indeed. Scott, thinking about players coming in, are you confident or happy enough that if Forest didn't make any more signings with what we've got, do you think that the squad is crying out for another player? We've signed Lorenzo Luca that we know about, but in terms of incomings, if we weren't to make another signing, would you be quite happy with the team and squad as it is?
Look, I'm really, really happy that we've got Luca in the squad. And I think, he's sort of that kind of profile of striker. I think, sort of similar-ish to Chris Wood, who we've really missed. Whether he can take the opportunities like Chris Wood is another matter, but he's a big, tall guy, good header of the ball. It's sometimes hard to keep up in terms of all the social media comments and go-ins between, because there's Mateta, there's talking about Strand Larsen. Is Strand Larsen going to Palace? And then that means that they will then let Mateta go. So that's the first I've heard that he's going to be going to Milan. which is if that is the case, that's a real shame, because I'd kind of thought he would be coming to us. I'd seen reports that he'd agreed terms and a few other sort of.
Don't believe everything you read on social media. I think that's the lesson there. But believe it when you see it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So disappointed. Yeah, look, I think if we don't get him, I'll be a bit disappointed. I remember, I think on a previous pod when you were talking around when we'd gone and signed Luca, and I think I said, so we've got obviously we've got Jesus, we've got Luca, we're looking to sign Mateta, and we've also got a 1 year. So there's that 4. Well, obviously Wood's injured, but potentially 3-4 strikers. Is that then too many? But I kind of resign myself to the fact that we do need another striker, because at the moment we're seeing Jesus playing a lot of minutes, a lot of time. So I do think we do need another striker. I think, with as you mentioned, the injury to Savona, do need a bit of cover at fullback. I think our squad at the moment is pretty strong. I think in terms of midfield, in terms of the wingers, up front we're talking around maybe bringing in one more striker. But I think really it's mostly at fullback where we may need someone else to bring in. But I don't necessarily feel that's hugely urgent on that. So look, if we do bring someone in, then terrific, that's great. Can that person hit the ground running? I think that's a lot of the time as well, is that when you bring someone in, are they Premier League ready, or have they been playing in a different league where maybe it's a different style, a different pace to the game? So I think if we can bring another fullback who can hit the ground running, then terrific. But for me, I guess the key sign that we need to make is a striker at the moment, and maybe one more fullback. But I think we're in good shape.
Okay. My personal view is that this is Forest we're talking about. I don't think the big man is going to let us go into Fenerbahce and the Europa League beyond that without some more reinforcements. If we've gone quite hard for Mateta, it tells me that the club really feel we do need another striker. My gut feeling is that Taiwo goes in this window. I really enjoyed his goal, being at Brentford on Sunday and seeing it live. As I mentioned on the previous episode, was a real thrill. It was a really great moment as a Forest fan to see a really good guy score a fantastic goal. That doesn't mean that I think he's the answer. I think we've all kind of said time and time again that perhaps, that Taiwo's best is behind him. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. It would be typical for Taiwo to leave Forest and go somewhere else and catch fire again. And if that was the case, then I think we'd all wish him well. But in terms of incomings to Forest, I believe the Oliveira deal could still happen. They're looking at David Fratesi still as a possibility. But again, there's interest in him from some very big clubs. One thing that was quite interesting that came out last night was the attempt by John Textor of Botafogo, we all remember him, to sell us back Danilo and also the Argentine wonder kid Alvaro Montoya. There was a possibility that those players from Botafogo would be coming to Forest because of so many financial problems Botafogo are having, and the fact they owe us money still for Danilo. So having him back and Montoya, I think, would have meant that we'd have paid them a bit of money and they'd have got them off the wage bill. But that deal has been blocked by the Brazilian justice system. So there's no Danilo coming back. It's all happening. I mean, I think we were quite happy for Danilo to go because we knew the injury had taken a lot out of him. But he's been performing well in Brazil for Botafogo, albeit, Brazilian football in terms of their league is the standard is, isn't the Premier League. So I think him not coming back to Forest might not have been a good idea. I'm glad that that's perhaps not coming to anything. All right, we're out of time, guys. Thank you so much to everybody that's been with us in the comments and in the live. Please do hit like and subscribe. We are on the pathway to try and get to 2,000 subscribers. We're at about 1,808 on YouTube, that is. So if you haven't subscribed already and you're watching on YouTube, give us a subscribe. Help us along. Thank you very much. Scott Terry, Crystal Palace comes to the City Ground on Sunday. Score prediction, please.
I'm going to have to go 2-0 solid performance. We're going to have a real go at them, and we'll score a couple of goals. Hopefully, Jesus gets on the score sheet, and I'd love for Luca to come off the bench and get one as well, and start his Forest career with a goal and a great performance, a winning performance as well.
Brilliant. Thanks for being with us today, Scott. Really appreciate you. Richard Spray, score prediction, buddy. Closing thoughts.
Yeah, I'm kind of in accord with Scott. I think 2-0. I want to see another dance. I'm going to call him a dancing bear because he's such a thick dude and such a agile guy though. In Murillo, wasn't it against Palace where he introduced himself, where he was dancing through the lines? I think it was Palace. I want to see a screamer from him at some point. We got to see a screamer that he slots home before he leaves us, because it feels like it's been destined at some point to happen. So I'm going to call for it in this match. But like Scott said, I think Jesus bags another Premier League goal as well, to ratchet up his goal tally in the Premier League and show that he's ready to keep hold of that starting 9 position.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to say 3-0 to Forest. 3-0 seems to be a scoreline this season for us. I know we got to 4 last night, but I'm thinking Spurs, I'm thinking Liverpool. And yeah, 3-0 for me feels right, especially with the players that that aren't at Palace anymore. But I think that does weaken them. I don't want to talk about them too much. I think we're a good side anyway, but I do think that does weaken them. And I think that we are a better squad, a better team than them, albeit we are below them in the table, but we're on the up and I think they're on the down. So I really think that we can go there to the City Ground and get a 3-0 win. I will be in attendance. I'm looking forward to being up with my son Orlando. I'll be in the nav beforehand. So Big Arn, come and find me with the baby Guinnesses. I'm not quite sure what time we'll get there. It might be around 11 o'clock-ish, I think, or there or thereabouts. So yeah, please come over and say hi if you see me. It'd be great to connect with as many of you in person as possible. Forest are on the march in Europe, and they're on the march in the Premier League. Come on, you Reds.
Come join Greg and Richard.